2 days, and it was pristine.
One day I was shooting another show that had been on the back lot all night at Universal, and I'm driving home at 6 in the morning, and I'm going near Jack's building, and I see this strange creature in the bushes leaping around, and I realized to my horror it's Jack Laird out there with a hose taking a shower at 6 in the morning. And, Starkers, which was not the most fun sight in the world. So that was Jack. He probably just cleaned up, dried off, went back to his typewriter.
Jack was one of the strangest people I've ever met. I mean, he was brilliant, but he lived at the studio. I mean, he had a hot plate. He would sit in his office and type away. Then he'd have a couple of belts. Then he would cook a little can of soup on his hot plate.
He was a little bit cantankerous, and he was always like, "Oh God, what's the matter? What do you think? I mean, what's wrong? John, what's kind of thing." But he was a serious writer, and a talented one.
He was an actor on the show. He starred in several of the vignettes.
Master, what do you think, Master? If I told you once, I've told you 100 times. Go easy on the vermouth!
He made his directorial debut on the show. He directed 2 of the better episodes on the show, Pickman's Model and A Question of Fear.
Good night, all. Wake me when it's over.
Jack was the kind of crazy producer that you would want for a show like this. I mean, there was nothing ordinary about Jack.
Jack Laird sometimes clashed with Rod Serling's personality and his view of the show.
I knew that the relationship between Jack and Rod was strained.
By the middle of the second season, Jack was not even returning Rod's phone calls any longer, because all he would do was fight about the nature of the show. Rod wanted it to be less, as he termed it, inconsistent, whereas Jack was far more interested in being experimental, in being revolutionary, in allowing the directors full reign on style and, bring wild ideas to the table. And I'm sure Rod felt that was the wrong way to go. But, Jack was the producer, and I think the results speak for themselves.
Jack Laird was known for many things, but most importantly, he was notorious for generating opportunities. Whether it was an aspiring director or a young actor looking to get their first shot on screen, Jack welcomed newcomers with open arms. In fact, Jack Laird gave me my first directing job, a 3rd season Night Gallery episode entitled Death on a Barge.
I don't know why, really. I just hid over there, looking at you.
And another noted director's first job behind the lens would become the pilot of Night Gallery. Just 22 years old at that time, and directing the inimitable Joan Crawford was Steven Spielberg.
Everybody was very excited. They wanted to see, what was he going to do? And Joan Crawford, who was the star of that episode, could not have been nicer. Spielberg was terrified to meet her because he had heard all these stories about what a monster she was, which are totally untrue. I mean, if maybe way deep in her past, but, when we met her, she was a lovely, sweet woman.
I want to see something. Trees, concrete, buildings, grass, airplanes, color!
The idle rich.
And his footage looked like nothing you had ever seen. It was so interesting. You'd watch the dailies and you'd go, I hate this guy. You just get so green and jealous because it was just so imaginative and clever.
Jack came in with a sort of crazy, off-the-wall, let's give young kids a chance to direct, like Spielberg, Johnny Badham. He started, all kinds of directors, Jeannot Schwark. He would just take chances. He would stick his neck out.
I think I did some of my best work on that, and it's not only me, I think all of us. And I think it's because the show brought what we were capable of out into the open, because it gave us freedom, and it was wonderful material.
Jack had a very keen eye for talent, and I think he was able to see the potential in young talent, and he gave the start to stars such as Lindsay Wagner and Diane Keaton.
Tell me, you've picked your husband out yet?
That's a very personal question to ask a girl.
Who had the luck, skill, and inclination to play amongst the creations? Well, week after week, a diverse group of Hollywood's finest graced the guest list. Sally Field and Vincent Price, Zsa Zsa Gabor and Randy Quaid, Joan Crawford and Ozzie and Harriet, and Night Gallery's personal favorite, John Astin, who was a rather frequent visitor to the gallery as both actor and director.
I'm hip. Well, I'll be the judge of that.
The show was a treasure chest for many of Hollywood's most notable actors, in part because of its notoriety and because of the large amount of attention the show was generating within the industry. There were over 190 different actors in 98 segments that comprised 43 episodes during the 3-year series run. You may recognize a certain particular life form.
There isn't any young actor who doesn't do 3 or 4 lines that doesn't say, well, okay, somebody's going to spot me and now the next part will be bigger. That's always in the back of your mind when you're a kid actor. You can't help it.
You get what you pay for in this life, I guess.
Indeed you do, young man. Indeed you do.
I was hired to do, I think, just a line. And I tended to ad-lib a little bit. And I guess I got away with it because they kept it in. I remember doing that and being a young actress and kind of being, afraid did I overstep my bounds, and found that I hadn't.
Nurse!
I didn't want to disturb you, Doctor, but
Dr. Mill, I've got to see Dr. Mill.
that has been going on all evening.
I'll look in on it.
They just said, hey, Rod Serling would like you to do one of the Night Gallery shows. And you'd play a guy sort of unlike you, maybe not